Hey, and welcome to the syllabus video. In this video, I'm going to run you through the basics of the course. We're going to walk through the syllabus together. So make sure that you have it open on a PDF in the event that you can't quite see some of the fine text that I'm about to cover. A couple of things. This is Philosophy 11, Introduction to Critical Thinking. The whole course is going to be online. This is your section number right here. And it's being taken through Long Beach City College. Just to reiterate here, there are going to be no meetings on campus, and I will not be holding office hours this winter intersession, so everything is online. I wanted to start off the course with a quote. And this quote comes to us from a Mexican philosopher, Jose Vasconcelos. And the quote is, I've included it here on the left. The translation, I came up with some translation for it, but it was pretty awful. Professor Roberto Garcia helped me out a lot and gave me some of the emotional content. So it's over here on the right. I would have never gotten it without his assistance. So thank you, Roberto. The quote is, "Only books will lift this country out of ignorant cruelty." And the idea is that education should be a way for us to better understand ourselves and move away from our prejudices and our ignorance into being ruled by what is always and everywhere true, rather than just what happens to be true at the time due to our prejudice. So that is kind of one of our guiding lights for this course. It's the idea that we're able to better ourselves through education. All right, a couple of things here. This is the most important thing that you want to know for this video. Come on, Professor Vic, get to it. What's our grade going to be? Okay, well, here's the breakdown of your grade. You have 7 quizzes, which will be worth 50% of your grade. It works out to like 7.14% of your grade per quiz. Those quizzes are almost entirely, but not quite entirely, multiple choice. That's half of your grade. Then the other half of your grade is split into 2 parts, 25% for each. Half of it's going to be a paper. The other half's going to be your presentation. Now, what they are, we'll get to in the end. But the paper is really fun. It's going to be on Roswell. And the presentation, you're going to be able to pick what you want. So that is your grade, how it's going to be broken down. And then we have another little quote here from Mary Wollstonecraft, a philosopher from the 19th century. "The being cannot be termed rational or virtuous who obeys any authority but that of reason." Killer quote. And again, the idea is really similar. You know, you cannot be considered rational or, virtuous unless you're using reason, right? Because reason is the thing that's going to help us understand the difference between opinion and fact, right? Or a good argument and a bad argument. We're going to try to move past people just giving sound bites for things and move towards thinking in arguments where we have reasons for thinking the way that we do, and if those reasons are tight enough, those reasons can force our conclusion or ensure that what we believe is true. Okay, so here are 3 student learning outcomes. I'm just going to read through them. Analyze arguments and components of arguments. That'll be the first thing that you'll do. 2, distinguish between examples of inductive arguments and deductive arguments. And 3, evaluate inductive arguments for strength, cogency, and or presence of fallacy in speech or text. That might sound like Greek to you. That's okay because you're taking the course now, right? For the first time. So don't feel like you need to know what all that is. But essentially the idea is this. It's not enough to have a conclusion or a position. You need to have reasons for thinking that conclusion or position or taking that position. That structure is called an argument. You'll be looking at arguments, you'll be analyzing them, and the stuff that makes them up, premises, conclusions, and inferences. You will distinguish between different kinds of arguments, some are better than others, and then lastly, you will be looking at more features of arguments, and you'll be looking for things called fallacies in these arguments. And what they are is they're mistakes in reasoning that we make very frequently, but they're incorrect. We make them so often, though, we can pick them out. So don't worry, we'll get to those in a bit. You're fine for now. As I mentioned before, your paper is going to be on Roswell. So we're going to be looking at some primary sources then. We're going to be looking at people who looked at wreckage. This is a great way to start the class. The course, or a great way to learn how to think critically, because Roswell is this insane story that aliens crashed in the desert in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico. And people make extraordinary claims about this. There are claims, there are people out there that a bar room full of people were handling alien wreckage. The mortician there makes the claim that he actually saw dead bodies and so forth, and he saw a live body. We're going to look at a good way to think about claims that are extraordinary, that require a lot of evidence, and how to determine what claims require evidence. There are 100 different ways that you can teach a critical thinking course. Here's a section on Second Sight. And in this course, right, rather than talk about politics or economics or something like that, in this course, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about paranormal stuff. So we're going to talk about psychics, conspiracy theories, ghosts, UFOs, werewolves, Bigfoot, Spring-heeled Jack, which is a crazy monster from Victorian England. We're going to do a lot of these different things, and it's a good way to make sure that you're reasoning properly. And when you're reasoning properly about cases involving psychics and Bigfoot and all that stuff, if you can reason in those cases where you have extraordinary claims, then you'll be able to reason in cases that are not extraordinary, when people are making ordinary claims about how much money you should get for a raise, or who the best person to elect for office is, right? We will be looking at how your body perceives reality, how your brain perceives reality. You can see there's a little wompiness here. It's an optical illusion, and what we'll be doing is talking about how your brain doesn't really give you a window of the world, but your brain is more like a desktop that represents the world in certain ways, but we can be aware of cases where there are going to be big errors in our perception. Those errors in perception are going to cause even greater errors in our thinking. Also, there's a tight connection between how we perceive something and how we think about it. Perception and cognition are super close. We will be covering memories. It's usually a great surprise to people that their memories are actually so bad. And that's because you think your memories are really good. But there's a reason for all of this, and we'll get to it in this course. Look, the number one goal here for me in this course for you guys is that you learn to control your mind, or someone else will do that for you. In other words, I will highlight for you things that occur, things that people do every day, for instance, in advertising, and how those things that they do end up essentially forcing you to make certain decisions that you wouldn't otherwise be aware of. Okay, and so here we are at the second page. There might have been a seamless edit there that I had to put through. Okay, so a couple of things here. We have a quote from Aristotle here. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. The goal of this course is that you are all trained to be able to entertain ideas, particularly those that you don't agree with. You're able to evaluate them without accepting or rejecting it out of hand, right? In other words, I want you guys to learn to think for yourselves. And it's not the goal of this course to teach you what to think, but it's the goal of this course to teach you how to think, right? So let's just get through some basic points here. This is Philosophy 11, Critical Thinking. It is entirely online. I will have no office hours. I will not be on campus at all. Okay, hold on. Okay, like I just said, I will not be holding any office hours. I will not be on campus for the duration of this course. This course meets entirely online, but I'm available by email, and if it comes to it, I can certainly talk on the phone too. Which reminds me, speaking of this course meeting entirely online, you might have just heard my youngest son scream to me from the house that his brother was chasing him. I'm going to be doing these videos everywhere I can. Today I can sneak out to the garage, so that's what I'm doing. But some days I'm going to be in the kitchen. Some days I'm going to be in my bedroom. It just depends on the weather and the kids. So I apologize, but please get used to one hazard of these videos, and that's my kids. They periodically come in, and here's one now, right? So hold on just a second. Okay, so I could have edited all that out, but I just decided to go with it, right? Okay, so there will be no office hours. I am available by email. The one thing I wanted to bring to your attention right now, and this is on the next page, the best way to get a hold of me is through the... As you log on, it's actually on the other side, but due to the formatting of the document, I had to put it on the right-hand side. As you log in, there's a little thing that says inbox. You click on that and you can compose a message to me. It goes right to me. It's not, to my knowledge, it's not chained to the regular email on campus, and it's very good. So message me on the inbox through Canvas. That's the best way to get a hold of me, the absolute best. But I'm also available on Twitter at Professor Vitt, and then on Instagram as Professor Vitt. Although frankly, I have not been on Instagram very frequently lately. I just sort of turned it off, but technically I'm on there. So if you are an Instagram fan and you want to follow me, or you want me to follow you, go for it. I'll follow you on there. If you're just following me on there and you don't want me to follow you and you're private, I always hit follow to people who follow me, and I get it. It's not going to hurt my feelings if you don't follow me back. It's totally okay, right? It's fine. Some people are like, you're a great professor, but I don't want you following me on Instagram, and I totally get it. It's fine. That's just supplemental stuff, right? The most important thing is that you know where the inbox is on Canvas so you can message me. If that doesn't work, then you can just email me at rvitt@lbcc.edu, but I encourage you to use Coursera. It's just better. I've had problems with emails, I'm not going to lie. Like every semester, somehow there's a lag or something, and Canvas is really, really good. And I would ask you to use Canvas if you want to message me. It's the best way for me to get it, and it's also the most reliable. Okay, so that's just a quick note. Okay, a couple of things. Here's the course catalog description. I'm going to read it. It's a little more illuminating than the student learning outcomes are, but not by much. This class focuses on the improvement of practical reasoning skills. Students will be required to improve their reasoning skills and will learn to detect and avoid common argument fallacies. Students will develop the knowledge and habits needed to make decisions between conflicting ideas and beliefs. Applications are made to both contemporary and perennial issues, such as current political events, the news media, science versus pseudoscience, and capital punishment. Big important point here. There is absolutely no sense in which, and nowhere does it say in the course description or the outcomes, that I'm grading you on your beliefs. You guys are entitled to believe whatever you want. I've had students who've taken my class and they say, yeah, I understand everything, Professor Vitt, but I just don't believe in UFOs. And then I've had students who said, yeah, I understand everything, Professor Vitt, but I believe in UFOs. I don't, in some sense, I don't care what you think because it's not relevant. I care that you understand the arguments for and against a position. I care that you understand what the burden of proof is relative to the type of claim being made. Those things are important to me, but your beliefs are wholly your own. And you shouldn't feel like when you're taking a course that you need to be politically one way or the other, right? You should be yourself and then let it all go, right? So that's most important to me, is that you guys don't feel like your personal ideas and beliefs cause you to be graded a certain way. I know I've taken courses like that where that was the case, and it was very frustrating. I think it was manifestly unfair, right? So I'm very sensitive to that. So, okay, so you get to believe whatever you want, and this course will be a ton of fun. Okay, we already talked about the student learning outcomes. This is our text. Now, I required this text, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. So it is necessary for the class, but I have had students who've only used my notes for this course. They're linked to every chapter, and I use them to compile the lectures. But I originally used this book, and so I require it. However, some students have been able to take this class without using the book. It's available very reasonably online. Okay, course requirements, we covered this above. You've got seven exams, that's half of your grade. So you can see where the bulk of your work is. It's on those exams that you're going to be given. Then you're going to have a paper. It's 4 to 5 pages exhibiting critical argumentation and self-evaluation. It's going to be about Roswell. It'll be a ton of fun. And then you're going to get one presentation where you get to pick something that you want, and you're going to analyze arguments. You're going to use the critical thinking toolkit to essentially come to some conclusion about some kind of crazy paranormal claim, maybe about a haunting or a ghost or whether Tupac is still alive, something like that. Okay. And then on the grading, on the syllabus, excuse me, we have the grading policy here. No pluses or minuses here at Long Beach City College. We're just straight A, B, C, D, or F. Next up, primary contact for me is the Canvas inbox. I know I already mentioned it before, but it's super important. I will not discuss your grade on social media. So if you text me or if you tweet me and say, "Hey, Professor Vitt, what's my grade?" I'll say, message me through the, through Canvas, and I'll tell you. I won't talk about that stuff on any kind of social media, right? That stuff is private and it's all within the school. Okay, I'm going to run through these next several pages just by talking about them as they come up. Note about dropping the course. I don't drop you from the course. Years ago, I had a student who emailed me and said, "Can you please drop me? Thanks." And of course I hadn't put it in the syllabus, and the student thought they dropped the course and they didn't, and I had emailed them back saying you need to go to admissions, and they never did, and it was a big problem. So if you feel like you're not going to be able to complete the course or you need to drop the course, then you need to go to admissions and records and do that. An email to me asking me to do it won't be sufficient to get that done. Class participation. Okay, there's an easy way to sum this up. This class is incredibly fast-paced. There are only 5 weeks, 5 weeks, and we're going to cover 16 weeks worth of material in those 5 weeks, right? So it's a lot. If you are taking 2 or 3 other classes, if you are working 3 or 4 jobs full time, if you are taking a trip for 2 weeks, you should probably not take the course, right? Because it's a lot of work in a very short period of time. Part of my job is to tell you that so that you know it now ahead of time. Okay, next up, content disclaimer. Okay, this course is going to deal with many controversial topics that relate to deeply held beliefs that people have. We'll talk about the afterlife. We'll talk about technically Ouija boards. We're going to talk about psychic abilities. We're going to talk about UFOs, conspiracy theories, 9/11. I mean, there's all kinds of things we're going to talk about in this class. And some of the things that I say are probably going to offend you. And that's not because my goal is to offend you. My goal is to get you to think, right? And so I want to teach you how to think. And in order to do that, I have to engage you. So please don't feel like I'm going to take a personal view of you because of your beliefs. I have students all across the board, and I love them all. They're all fantastic people. So your course doesn't, your grade here doesn't depend on what you believe. It depends on whether or not you can conform to the student learning outcomes and do the stuff that's required under the My Grade section of the syllabus. So, and then another thing, the Smith book. It's a good book, but there are portions of that Smith book that a lot of students find objectionable, particularly with regard to his discussion of religious beliefs. He covers it real quickly, here and there, sort of backhandedly, and I don't know that it's a terribly exhaustive philosophical treatment of religious beliefs, so we really don't discuss him, and those views don't reflect my own. But I wanted to make you aware of his views so that you know they're there in the book. And if this was a course on philosophy of religion or existentialism, we could take a lot more time to talk about religious beliefs. I think it's a really interesting subject, and as a philosopher, I love to talk about it. Plus, I just think that stuff is really fun and interesting. Okay, so if you're having difficulty with any of the course content, the book, my notes, the stuff we're discussing, please let me know. I'm happy to talk about any of it. Look, just a quick side note as to who I am here real quickly. I went to graduate school for philosophy, and then I left before I got my PhD, and instead I went to law school and then to business school, and I passed the bar the first time, and I was a practicing attorney. I had my own firm, and I had married the right person, and my wife had pointed out how unhappy I was in what I was doing, and a friend at the time needed a class taught in philosophy, and she said, "Why don't you just do it for fun, go teach a class?" So of course I did, and I realized it was a mistake. And so after having been an attorney for several years, I went back and became a professor. And I was lucky enough to get hired at Long Beach City College, such a great institution. So if you have any questions or you have any concerns in this course, never hesitate to message me and let me know, because I'm doing exactly what I want to do with my life. Not a lot of people get that kind of a reboot, like, hey, I want to do this, and then, oh no, I don't want to do, I'm going to change everything. But what I like to point out to students is, look, whatever your career trajectory is in terms of what you want to do with your life, it is probably not going to be a straight line. It wasn't for me, right? I ended up doing a lot of graduate work that I never used. It was interesting and it was wonderful for me, and I ended up learning a lot of skills that I don't use now in the same way anyway. But none of it was a waste. And so if I can counsel any of you guys on admission to graduate schools or law schools moving forward, please don't hesitate to let me know. If you have even a small question, you need a paper extension or you're concerned about something, it's not showing up, please let me know. This is absolutely what I want to be doing. I'm teaching the winter intersession because I actually want to, so I've got something to do, right? I love teaching. I love the subject that I teach, and I hope that you like it too, or at the very least you like the course. So please don't feel like my door is ever closed. It is always open if you have any questions at all. I really believe in what I'm doing and what I'm teaching, and I hope that you really enjoy that course. Okay, a little side note there. Now, internet access. Obviously, you're going to need internet access, and this says Moodle, but it should say Canvas. So you're going to need internet access for an online course. The cat's out of the bag. Okay, make sure your email is current with the distance learning. In other words, make sure that you get our class emails and you log into Canvas regularly. Academic integrity and plagiarism. Okay, this is somewhat important, right? The way to think about this is, when in doubt, cite. Okay, so this section of the syllabus deals with something called plagiarism and academic integrity. And essentially what this means is sometimes people plagiarize when they take someone else's work and they claim that it's their own. It's kind of like copying or cheating, except it's usually in a paper. So I'll say a couple of things about this. When you get the assignment that this will be relevant to, we'll definitely talk about it again. But there's a basic rule. If you're not sure, let's say you're reading an article and somebody says something really well and you just can't say it that well and you want to put it in your paper, identify that section with quotes, cite in parentheses who said it, John Frost on page 32, and then explain why you used the quote. It's called ICE. We'll talk about it later. The number one concern is that someone else ends up writing a paper for you, or you take parts from online articles to write the paper. Let me just say that those are very easy to catch. We have a paper on Roswell. And I teach this course every semester. It's pretty safe to say I know the first 25 websites that pop up in a Roswell search. And most of the other sites are just repeats of those. So it's easy for me to spot when someone doesn't use the quotes. Look, I'd rather have you write a really bad paper and have it be yours than someone else writing a really good paper for you. As you are taking this course, I assume that, in fact, this is you taking the course. By signing in here, you're certifying that this is you taking the course. Apart from that, there's not a lot of room for cheating in this class. It doesn't seem like there's much room for you guys to cheat and use other people's work, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you have any questions about how to cite somebody else's work or whether or not you're copying somebody's work improperly, please let me know. It's really not a problem. I don't think it'll be a problem in this class, but sometimes students use other sources and they don't attribute them properly. If that happens, there are dire consequences, right? So you should definitely let me know. And if you need an extension on a paper, oh gosh, I'm happy to talk to you about that and see what we can do. but I would never want you to feel like, oh gosh, this paper's due in an hour. I'm going to have to copy a bunch of other articles in order to get it done. Just message me and say, I've got an hour to go. Can I get an extension, right? And we can work that out. I'd rather just have that than have you turn in something that's not your work. Okay, student success centers, those are great. They're fantastic, and they're all listed here. Access service is really phenomenal. I can't say enough about PNS. So if you are a DSPS student and this is making sense to you, forward me your stuff. Let me know what your questions are, and I'm happy to work with you. Next thing, veterans. Thank you for your service. You've made my life immeasurably better. We do have a new veteran center here. It's in E10. So there you are. And then lastly, I just want to bring your attention to the Career and Job Services Center. I have a friend who recently got his resume redone, and he spent a lot of money to get that done. He spent over $1,000 to have somebody review and revise his resume. Now, that was a top-end job. It was a lot of money, but people do this regularly. If you have a resume or you're trying to figure out how to get out there and get a job, go to the Career and Job Services Center. That's what those people are paid to do. And people normally who aren't enrolled in school have to pay some private entity in order to get those skills and that assistance. I would encourage you to check that out. Next thing, sequence of assignments. Well, I'm going to zip down to those in a moment. The sequence of assignments listed on this syllabus, which is right back here, are not necessarily final. So in other words, let's suppose we're zooming through the course. We get to January the 16th and nobody can get through Module 3 because it's just so difficult. What I would do is reserve the right to keep that open. Now, it's incredibly rare that I would keep something open past the date, but if I make any revisions to the schedule, it's always to the benefit of the student. So in other words, I'll never say, oh, instead of having 10 days for your paper, you'll have 2, right? It'll always be something where you're given more time or I move due dates out for you. I'll never lessen the amount of time that you have. Okay, so next up, here we go. So academic integrity, don't use anybody else's work and treat it as your own. Student success centers, amazing. Access, amazing. Veterans Affairs Office is an E10. Career and Job Services Center, raw. Assignments, the schedule of assignments is pretty firm, but I might make adjustments in order to benefit students, right? Late assignment policies, you have got to get the modules done when the modules are due. If I let people just do the modules at their own pace, they never get them done and they don't get them done in time. So listen, when when January the 9th hits, right? On January the 10th, you're gonna have your 2 new modules open up and module 1 will be closed. So I'm begging you, please don't wait until January the 9th at 11:30 to start module 1. It'll be too late, right? And we're gonna have to roll through a lot of material in a very short period of time. You guys can kind of see that there. So please keep up. Don't start assignments late because it's so easy to run out of time. Okay. Discipline policy. Go ahead and see creating a collegiate environment, the schedule of classes. Really, this relates more so to the second point here with online decorum. Look, you guys will be discussing things in chat rooms throughout this course, usually in prep for a paper. And when you do that, it's perfectly fine to disagree. In fact, you're going to have to disagree at certain points, but you have to be civil as you do so. Right, so one thing that you might say is, oh, Juan, you referenced Carl Orff's article on Roswell, but what you failed to understand was on the last page he states blah, 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 right? That's fine. It would not be okay to say, oh, Juan, by the way, you're stupid, you're dumb, and your ideas are dumb, right? That would be a personal attack. And in this class, we're going to avoid those. Now, it is a natural tendency when you disagree with people to think that they are either too dumb, too stupid, or too evil to appreciate your position. But that is virtually never the case. So just keep that in mind, that as we disagree about things, we're entitled to disagree. It's almost inevitable that we're going to disagree, but we have to do so in a civil manner, right? And just respect the disagreement. It's fine. People disagree about the weather, right? Okay, academic freedom. One thing here that I mentioned before, you are going to be exposed to language or ideas that are in conflict with your personal worldview. It's not because I get a great kick out of this, it's because it's part of learning, right? Part of learning is to take these models of the world that you have and to stress them and to challenge them and see, are there any weak points? Can we give a greater foundation to our most basic beliefs? Yeah, I think we can. That's part of the rule of this course, and so just be prepared for that. Okay, next up, fast-paced course. We're going to be covering almost 3 weeks every week. So if you're going to be unavailable for part of this course, once again, I just want to tell you, give your seat up to someone else. The waiting list is long. General guidelines and information. Spelling and grammar counts, particularly with regard to your papers. I know that when you're writing an email or a text to a friend, seldom do people use capitals, and I get that, that's fine. But when you're turning in a paper, your grammar and your spelling, those things are going to count. They're going to count at the college level. So I have a rewrite policy on my papers. All papers are subject to rewrite. So if you get your paper back and you get a 62 and you say, gosh, I know I can do better, I'm happy to help you get there. Email me and we'll work it out. And you can do a rewrite of the paper, make the corrections that you need, and whatever you get on the rewrite is what you get. So I want to encourage you guys to think of writing as a process. Rather than just, oh, you turned in this piece of writing once and now you're stuck with this grade forever and you can't do anything to learn from the situation. That just seems crazy to me. Okay, this is the class schedule. So you see this particular module will be closing on the 9th. Opening on the 9th will be modules 2 and 3. And I'm going to try to open up, for instance, the Roswell assignments early, and I'm going to try to open up individual presentation modules early for you guys, just so that people can get it rolling, because I know sometimes people are taking other classes. Okay, you guys, this was super long. This was a long video. It seems like I'm racing through this stuff, and yet here we are, at who knows how many minutes, long. Bottom line for the syllabus. Number 1, you know what your grade is going to be. Here it is. It's going to be 50% of the quizzes, a presentation, which is going to be PDFs of a PowerPoint that you send to me, and a paper. Paper is going to be 4 to 5 pages. I'm going to give you the format. Spelling and composition are going to count. Quizzes are going to be almost every week. Certainly they'll be every week. Mostly multiple choice. But you'll have the notes that I use to compile the quiz and the lecture with. This is our grading scale. If you have any questions in terms of contacting me, the best way to do it is right here on your inbox inside of Canvas. Please use that. You're welcome to use those. Follow me on Twitter or Instagram. That's great. That would be fun. I'd love it. Look, if you guys have any questions about any of this, please email me and let me know, and I am absolutely happy to help you guys figure it out. Okay. I'm stoked about this course. It's a ton of fun. And welcome to Critical Thinking, Philosophy 11. I'll see you guys in there.